For as long as I can remember, we've been sold this idea that a college degree, especially a master's, is the golden ticket, a guaranteed path to a better life, a bigger salary. But let's be real. With tuition costs going through the roof and student debt piling up, is that promise still holding up? Today, we're going to break down what the real return on investment for higher education actually looks like.
It's the question on everyone's mind when they think about grad school, right? You put in the time, you spend the money, you pull the all-nighters, so it has to pay off. It just has to. Well, when you look at the actual data, the picture gets a whole lot more complicated.
Okay, take a look at this number. 40%. Just let that sink in for a second. It seems pretty high, but what does it actually stand for?
Well, that is the percentage of master's degrees in the United States that have a negative financial return on investment. You heard that right. According to one major report, that means 2 out of every 5 programs leave students financially worse off than when they started. So how is that even possible? To really get it, we need to look at the entire journey, and we'll use some fascinating data from the UK to see how the deck can be stacked from day one. Okay, let's get into it.
First up, the uneven starting line. Because, the race for that degree, it doesn't actually start when you get your acceptance letter. The odds are being set long, long before you even think about applying.
The best way to think about the path to a degree is like a gauntlet, and the very first challenge is just getting access, just getting in the door. And data on state school pupils in England shows us just how incredibly unequal this starting line really is. So first, let's talk gender. Right off the bat, we see a pretty big gap. You've got 52.5% of young women in this group entering higher education, compared to just 39.5% of young men. That is a 13-point difference before they've even stepped on campus.
But wow, when you look at ethnicity, the differences are just huge. I mean, the variation is enormous. While the entry rate for white pupils is around 40%, it jumps up to over 63% for black pupils. And for Chinese pupils, it skyrockets to almost 83%. These aren't just small gaps, right? This is like a whole different reality depending on your background.
And maybe the most powerful factor of all? Socioeconomic background. If you're from an area where not many people have historically gone to university, your chances are just under 32%. But if you're from an area with the highest participation, that rate almost doubles to over 60%. That's a massive difference.
And this is where it gets really sobering. When you start combining these factors, like class and ethnicity, the numbers just plummet. Check out this one statistic from the UK's Department for Education. For white male students from the most economically disadvantaged backgrounds, we're talking those eligible for free school meals, the university entry rate drops to less than 15%. 15! That's less than half the rate of even the lowest participation areas we just looked at.
Okay, so let's say you beat those odds and you get in. The gauntlet's not over, not by a long shot. The next challenge is actually making it all the way to the finish line, to graduation.
And, maybe not surprisingly, the same patterns of inequality we just saw, they continue right inside the university walls. The data shows that dropout rates are consistently higher for students from minority ethnic groups compared to their white peers. And, yep, you guessed it, male students from deprived areas are also more likely to drop out, creating this kind of double hurdle for that group.
So let's imagine you've done it. You've run the whole gauntlet. You beat the odds, you got in, you stuck with it, and you graduated. Now comes the moment it's all supposed to pay off. But does it?
And this really is the crucial question, isn't it? Is a degree the great equalizer we all hope it is? Does it wipe away all those disadvantages that existed before you started? Well, the data suggests the playing field gets flatter, but it's far from level.
Let's start by looking at the gender pay gap among graduates. 1 year out, things look pretty equal. Median earnings for men and women are basically identical. But then you fast forward 10 years, and a significant gap has opened up. Male graduates are earning nearly £5,000 more per year on average.
And this gets to a really crucial point. A degree helps, but it's not a magic bullet. An analysis from the Institute for Fiscal Studies confirms that while going to university reduces those pre-existing earnings gaps, it definitely doesn't eliminate them. Even when you account for people with the same school performance who took the same exact subject, men from ethnic minority groups still earn significantly less than their white British counterparts.
All of this brings us back to our big question. With all these different variables in the mix, your background, your gender, the risk of dropping out, and these pay gaps that stick around, how do we even begin to calculate the value of a degree? And it suggests that maybe the problem is how we're even defining return. We tend to get hyper-focused on return on investment, or ROI, the cold, hard cash.
But what if we started thinking about a broader idea, return on education, or ROE? This would include all the priceless, non-monetary benefits, the knowledge, the personal growth, the social mobility, and just the simple, powerful value of becoming a more educated person. The true value of a degree isn't one simple number. It's a complex, totally personal equation. You have to add up all the variables, your starting point, the subject you choose, the school you go to, the debt you take on, and the career you end up following. The answer is going to be completely different for every single person. That 40% negative ROI we started with, that's not a universal truth. It's just an average, and it's hiding thousands of unique equations and individual outcomes.
So we're left with this. If a purely financial calculation doesn't capture the whole picture, and the financial return itself is so uncertain for so many, then we have to ask a much bigger question. How should we, as individuals and as a society, measure the true value of education?